You may have heard of Indian summer, a term used to describe unseasonably warm late fall weather. But here, we are focusing on indie summer. Early in the summer, I was looking for short and simple games to try new genres as I embark on my midlife crisis that is game collecting. I was going to be working something like 400 hours of overtime due to staffing shortages, with little spare time for longer, more challenging games. So I decided I would play a new indie game every week for the 12 weeks of June, July, and August. And oh boy, did I get into some shenanigans.
You mean shenanigans?
I'm breaking this into 3 very broad categories, and I'll point out which game of each I enjoyed most. At the end, I'll tell you which game topped the list as my personal favorite, and you'll see which game had me running for the toilet because the motion sickness was insane. Point-and-click games are very common in the indie scene due to more simple mechanics, and one huge perk for players is the joy of experiencing a plethora of art styles game to game. They also tend to swing a little harder when it comes to the story, because the story and art are the main focus of these games. The first game I played on this journey was When the Past Was Around, and the hand-drawn art set the tone for a story about love, loss, and the stages of grief. The music that tied the game's chapters together was simple, but both whimsical and bittersweet as needed. It was stuck in my head for weeks, and occasionally still makes an appearance. The main character is working her way through her grief, and you get to experience the journey with her as she relives memories. Each chapter has certain puzzles to complete that allow you to advance to the next memory, and the simplicity of the point and click will leave you focusing on the details of the art, music, puzzles, and story. It was an excellent starting point for someone new to these puzzle narrative games. This is one game I made certain to 100%. Early on in my challenge, I tackled The Stillness of the Wind. The color palette is fairly yellow and brown with some pops of color in and around the house. I did appreciate the art style as it was detailed but not overwhelming. You play an old woman who has been left to run the farm after all her family has moved off to the city. You'll do farm sim tasks, but this is not a farm sim. To try to stay alive, but this is not a survival game. It's strange and uncomfortable, and that's the point. Loneliness is a strong theme. I don't want to spoil the ending, but by 3/4 of the way through, you should absolutely see it coming, and frankly, welcome it. I did not enjoy this game at all. Pro tip, ditch the goats, live on eggs. I played To the Moon early in my journey, and it was the first game where I had to move the characters around the game space and actively explore maps at my own pace. But in the end, it's still mostly a point-and-click novel type game. The pixel art is adorable and extremely well designed, with colors and textures popping to make a vibrant living world, but subdued memory world. The music is predominantly piano, but with some full orchestral pieces, and it sells the emotions that you'll be dragged through on this journey. You alternate playing as 2 doctors who have come to grant a dying man one last wish through the use of artificial memories. To implant them, you have to move backwards through his memories, interacting with objects that formed his core memories, solving small puzzles to connect them. As they dig deeper, there is also some question as to whether they should be doing this, even if it was originally the man's dying wish, since he doesn't even remember some of his past trauma, and would he choose differently if he did? It's a masterfully designed story that touches on free will and mental health, and I can't wait to find time to play the 2 sequels. One of the later games I played was, and stick with me here, Nelly, Cootalot, Spoonbeaks Ahoy, and it was every bit as absurd as it sounds. The game was made by Alasdair Beckett as a gift for his girlfriend.
Hi there. You look like you're about to start playing Nelly Cootalot Spoonbeaks Ahoy HD for the first time. Thanks.
And the hand-drawn art is very rudimentary sketchbook style and delightful to spend time with. You are Nelly, a fierce pirate sent to save the native bird population, the Spoonbeaks. Through robust conversations with island residents, no small amount of fetch quests, and some puzzles that could use a little work, you'll solve the mystery of the missing bird so you can get back to buckling swashes. Most of this game was tons of fun, but the few puzzles were needlessly complicated with no reset buttons. I recommend a guide for the code puzzle at the very least, and if you like this game, good news, there is a longer sequel. I was surprised to find just how much I enjoyed the simple point-and-click genre, and have never really spent this much time analyzing the art in a game. The story that made me feel the deepest feels and took me on the most incredible journey, though, was To the Moon. The following character adventure games are from varying genres and art styles, but with the game designed around a playable character. Twists and turns abound, along with some amount of combat, as a lot more player agency was to be had in the following games. I wasn't sold on What Remains of Edith Finch after my experience with the first game from Giant Sparrow absolutely wrecked me. It was a first-person, moving through environment style adventure with a lot of interactable items and some mouse moving to manipulate objects on the screen. The story, despite being possibly the most up narrative I've ever played, was full of heart. It offered a saga of generational trauma in the most literal sense, tackling extremely difficult topics with grace and respect. As you move through this old house, you experience the memories of the deaths of the people who lived there from their perspective as you learn about your past. This was never going to be sunshine and rainbows. What helped me stomach some of it was the detail in the dreary graphics. The beautiful textures and vivid colors kept me curious to see what I would find in the next room of the creepy, low-lit house. That overall dark aesthetic made the brighter, happier scenes so much more impactful. The music was also artfully designed to be present when it was needed to support the emotional moments, but otherwise set the mood and the background and immersed me in the game. This is a fantastic game, but not for the faint of heart. The very last game I played was Alba, a wildlife adventure, and it was truly a delightful adventure indeed. The art is bright and polygonal, but it has a clear, polished style to it that's felt across the environments, objects, animals, and humans you'll encounter as you take photos to complete your field book and rebuild the nature preserve. Alba is visiting her grandparents in Spain for the summer, and playing a kid really let me get back in touch with my inner child. As an aviation geek, I delighted in seeing her run along, arms out, just being an airplane. I got to know the island residents, and I found myself wishing I could befriend some of them in real life. When I was done, I actually felt a sense of loss knowing the game was ending and I, and Alba, had to go home. So I wandered around taking more pictures so I wouldn't have to leave yet. The music was perfection and brought me so much joy throughout the 4 hours I spent on the island of Sekirol. And the animal sound effects were super adorable. I played it on controller with no issues, but the keyboard commands looked very simple as well. This was an easy 100% game for me since an island vacation was just what I needed after 72 hours of overtime that month. When I saw Evoland on the Infinite Backlog Games Done Quick Challenge, I snagged it and jumped right in. The premise is you play through a game, but from beginning to end, you progress from the earliest style of RPG all the way to the late 90s style of RPG in terms of mechanics and graphics. As you go along and open chests, you discover things like 16-bit graphics, color, or soundtracks. It's presented very well initially, but I felt it too quickly moved through the styles to where it peaks around Ocarina of Time, Final Fantasy VII range graphics. Then you spend the rest of the game doing either turn-based combat where the points are made up and the levels don't matter. Seriously, don't bother grinding. Or Zelda-type combat where you're in a dungeon with 3 hearts, no shield, and a prayer. I was so burned out on the dungeon crawling game overs kicking me to the start screen that after the one major mandatory dungeon, I didn't care to 100% this. When I stumbled into a fully optional dungeon, I opted right out of doing it. I do recommend it if just for the idea of what it was trying to be, a love letter to the RPG genre. A+ for idea, but unfortunately a C for execution. The sequel sounds a ton better, but I'm not sure I'm going to bother playing it after this particular struggle. I was so excited to play the unfinished Swan because the idea of paintballing the world into existence sounded like the most fun and unique concept for a game of all time. And it is. The ability to define how much of the world you see is extremely cool, and you have to be careful to not overpaint it such that the structure is lost to darkness instead of light. I absolutely loved the first 5 to 10 minutes of it. Then I started getting more complex rooms, had to move a lot, look around a lot, and oh man, the first-person camera really did not sit well with my stomach. After about 15 minutes, I had to get up and walk around and take a breather. I tried again and unlocked shadows, even cooler. Another 10 minutes and I was in a labyrinth, wandering in circles, swinging the camera all over to try to splatter walls and cut throughs, and soon that had me running for the bathroom, about to hurl. I'm proud to announce, I kept my lunch down. Man, it was a lot of deep breaths and the cool wood paneling of the vanity cabinet against my face as I tried to stop the world spinning that saved me. Not quite the gaming experience I was looking for. I turned it off, and I will never touch it again. With a couple serious contenders for favorite in this category, I had to think hard about what was most important to me in these games. Since the point-and-click games were more about story, I decided to judge more based on the characters, setting, and how immersed I felt playing these. The one I wanted to get lost in and never go home was Alba, a wildlife adventure. When it comes to puzzles, I strongly prefer a classic tabletop jigsaw puzzle. I did try out a couple of games that came highly rated, but overall, I felt more frustrated than entertained by half of these. I did still enjoy the other two, but they aren't as puzzly as the ones I disliked. Maybe I'll just stick to real-life puzzles. While it is certainly the most puzzle of the puzzle games, Gorogoa frustrated me to no end. It's beautiful, to be sure. The hand-drawn art is mind-blowingly well made. The music is a lesson in writing scores for games with its infinite loop style and use of long tones and gradual changes across longer tracks. This game is a masterpiece of art top to bottom, and I hated it. Full disclosure, I can't see images in my mind, something called aphantasia. It means I couldn't visualize how the pieces would fit together, and therefore I couldn't see the moves ahead of me. That stalled me out more times than I can count. I found myself clicking and dragging and dropping things all over, just hoping to luck into the right move. The game made me feel like a complete idiot, and I hated that. I ended up looking up a guide and used that for the rest of the game. If you have experience with this genre and you enjoy solving these visual shape puzzles, you will probably love this game. Catlateral Damage Remeowstered might be the most punerific title I've ever played. In this collectathon game, you are a cat. You destroy things, and you get treats for it. The catch is the time limit. So the puzzle is finding the best order of operations and learning where all the items and boosts are. This has a field of view slider, but if you do struggle with motion sickness, skip the last tier of speed up levels because it makes the motion blur really bad. Bright, minimalist polygons make up the graphics, and the music is retro vibes all day. And yes, you can meow. Controls were easy to learn and intuitive, and skill trees are simple. While the base skills are tiered, all the extra skills can be purchased in any order. This could be played for untold hours of in-game fun because there are dozens of cats to unlock, and you can't get them all in objective mode, though you can easily 100% the individual levels. The only plot is destroy everything, and I'm here for it. I think going into all of this, Journey was the game I was the most excited to play because I absolutely adore the studio's other game, Flower. I have a full review for that one here somewhere. I'll link it in the info too. The graphics were well polished, but each level was fairly monochrome and I struggled with the details sometimes, which made solving all the puzzles feel more tedious than challenging. The music was simple with a lot of strings, which I loved, and did a good job of keeping the mood. So how did the game play? Without spoilers, I'll just say the beginning was slow, the middle had good pacing, and the end was a miserable experience for me. I was given no proper motivation besides my own curiosity, and really that's not enough to keep me invested when the game drags on and makes no sense to me. I still don't know the plot. I couldn't wait for this one to end, and that tainted the experience of that beautiful last level for me. FYI, the companion who joined you is a real player, not AI. I apologize to everyone I AFK'd on when I got bored and went to do chores. After the slew of emotionally charged point-to-clicks, I tried out Donut County and enjoyed one of the most entertaining, silly fun games of the summer. This can be played on the PC, but I used a controller for ease. The art is bright, stylized, and very angular, which is important when you realize you are a hole. You swallow objects. The game physics is absolutely wild. I laughed, then I felt bad for stealing people's stuff, then I got over it and laughed some more. The levels became more challenging and I had to complete tasks with my hole to move into the next zone to keep sucking up items. Then the whole script flipped and I found a much deeper story going on than anticipated. The last third or so of the game changed to more action-adventure with distinct mini-games, but kept the simplicity of gameplay and controls. Take your time and read through your Trashopedia at the end of each level. You can thank me later. Ultimately, this is a hidden lesson about empathy, teamwork, and community amongst total absurd hilarity. So which puzzle challenge did I think was the best of the bunch? With its addictingly fun gameplay and still poignant story of friendship and forgiveness, Donut County takes the Donut. It was a whirlwind summer of stories and overtime and reviews. Oh my! But we got there in the end. So of the three category winners, To the Moon, Alba, a wildlife adventure, and Donut County, which was my S-tier favorite? Alba, a wildlife adventure. Gosh, this was just so wholesome. So easy to pick up and learn. Zero discomfort, either physically with motion sickness or mentally with the traumatic themes some of these dealt with. And overall, the one game I did not want to get up in the middle of for any reason, except this one interrupted me for business time. Huge shout out to the dev team at UsTwo Games for their incredible work creating such a beautiful, engaging game. I don't know who wrote the dialogue for Ennis, but they were channeling 12-year-old me. You nailed 90s tween slang, you absolute legend.
Perfection.
But what about you all? What's your favorite game that you played this summer? Have you played any of these? Let me know in the comments. If you stuck with me to the end, thank you so much, and please drop a like if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more game reviews from me in the upcoming months. I've really enjoyed talking about games with y'all and approaching them from a more casual perspective. Gaming feels relaxing and enjoyable again. I have a couple reviews in the works, plus a ton more games to play that I'm ridiculously excited about. I'll catch you all next time, so try new games, slay that backlog, and cheers to you all. Ooh, yeah, I like that one.